Hello everybody and welcome back to Wargaming Luke for another video. I was meant to put out a video this last weekend, but I was very ill. I had completely lost my voice. Luckily, I'm back to full health, so I'm able to bring you another update video, whatever you want to call it, to chat about things that have been happening with our wonderful plastic toy soldiers in the last week. And there's been a little bit of news floating around, so I thought I'd come on here, cover it, and also later on, end of the this short video, I'll give you a little update on what's going on with the podcast. Very exciting things going on. We've acquired our third and core member for the podcast. I'll let you know who that is at the end of the vid. But yes, news of the week. And two things that I'm mainly going to cover in this video. Warhammer Fest, not happening this year. Second thing, I have a little bit of a dig to have at Games Workshop here, because there's always a dig to have at Games Workshop, sadly, with the way they're kind of handling the old worlds and Warhammer Fantasy Return, if you like, but also why, as usual, I've given in to what they're doing, and I may or may not have just acquired my Tomb Kings box set, but we shall go over that later on. But I'll cover first the whole situation with Warhammer Fest. Games Workshop on Warhammer Community, I think it was yesterday or the day before, as of day recording. We're on the 6th today, so I think it was on the 4th maybe that it dropped. The news that the events for this year for their competitive circuit, which is going to be a 3 or 4, I think, or maybe even 5, or maybe more than that actually, across America in the different states and whatnot. Where they're hosting the competitive events, and also the Grand Narrative is going to be hosted over in the US as well. I have my own thoughts on that, but then also at the end of the article they did outline the fact that Warhammer Fest likely isn't happening. I was kind of thinking, well, I think most people have already been saying it was October-ish time the year before last time that we had the tickets released for, what was it, May or June or something like that, last year then, for Warhammer Fest. So that's what, like 7, nearly 8 months notice for people to buy tickets. That would take us nearly outside of this year if they put tickets up and announced Warhammer Fest now. So it's just, I figured it probably wasn't going to be announced now anyway. Was kind of keeping fingers crossed that they do something smaller. But then obviously they also announced last week, I think it was, or maybe earlier, that Golden Demon this year is being hosted at the big event in Germany that they always have every year. So as soon as that kind of got announced, I was like, not so sure at all that they're going to be doing a full-blown Warhammer Fest. And to be honest, from what I heard from most people last year, I think some people did enjoy what was there for sort of half a day to a day, but I just don't think that there's generally enough stuff there. I've been to their recent Warhammer Fests. I didn't manage to make last year's, to be fair. I did have tickets and I had to move them on, sadly. I had something else pop up that I needed to do. So didn't sadly get to go, but I was excited to go at the time because it looked like they had a bit more going on. But from what I've heard, people have been and said there was sort of more stuff there, but it's stuff that you can only do for like 10 minutes per thing. And I just think there's so many more ideas they could come up with that I'm not going to go into now because I want to cover a couple of things on this video. But and maybe it's something we can talk about in the new podcast in the future. But it's just, they do need a bit more Warhammer Fest on offer, and I do have a bit of an idea about how this could change in the near future though, and I think it could maybe tie into a fact of the whole TV series and everything we've got coming with Henry Cavill, because if that does go down well, that's obviously going to pull in, and I know a lot of people are worried about it in the fan base, it's going to pull in a ton of fans if it does do well, and it stretches out the audience and whatnot. What Warhammer and Games Workshop can then do is actually create a Warhammer style Comic-Con and basically have it based around not just the modelling and that side of the hobby that they'd usually have at Warhammer Fest, but you can then throw in so much more money and backing to those events when you've got the backing and the likes of, maybe you could even have a panel for the next series or for the last series that you've had of whatever's going on in the Warhammer verse on Amazon, and have Henry Cavill show up on a panel, and you'd get thousands more people in if you had that sort of a new fan base. I've seen what Comic-Cons are like, I've been to them, I'm sure most of you have as well. It's another level, really, and the problem is, when I've been to these Warhammer Fests recently, I went to the ones at the Rico Arena, you had like one hall filled with things, and even that was half empty really. Then I think they had a couple of floors where you had Golden Demon happening, and then obviously the best bit, to be honest, was where they had a couple of the new Warhammer World dioramas. I remember the year when they brought the Idoneth Deepkin one in, that was fantastic, and lots of the new models that are coming out that have only been shown there in person first. So it's one of those, you know, it's like I'd love it to be bigger and better, but how much can they really do to make it bigger and better? I think there are certain things they can do, but maybe not without that next level, which I think maybe this TV series and things like that might well bring. Who knows? We'll see. Let me know what you think about that, guys, in the comments. But if that blows up big time, I think, you know, that's when your events can go to the next level too. But just my thoughts. But in terms of the fact that obviously we don't have anything big this year in the UK, I'm not being like, what's the word here? Xenophobic maybe, or something like that. I don't even know if that's the right term for it really, that I don't have any big events in the UK this year, and Warhammer came from the UK and Warhammer World's here, why aren't we having any of the big stuff? Like, why can't we do a grand narrative event in the UK as well? Why not? But we do usually have a lot of the bigger stuff happen here, and I think Games Workshop are eyes wide open to the fact that this is definitely a worldwide brand. America is such a massive audience for them. It makes sense that they're doing a lot of the bigger events over there now, to be honest. A lot of people will travel over there for it anyway. And I completely get that, to be honest. And we do still have Warhammer World here, and they'll have, I'm sure, a great number of events, as they did point out in their article as well, this year to come anyway, which I shall keep my eyes open for, and hopefully the first narrative event will be announced soon, because that's my jam. But I think that's all I'm going to really touch on for the Warhammer Fest, because I don't want to drag on too long for this vid. The other thing that I wanted to touch on in this video, I've not really been able to speak about it yet. I know it's been a while, but we did have obviously the Legends rules drop for the factions that we don't actually have in Old World from the start, from the get-go. My Lizardmen being one of them, I was absolutely gutted. We did kind of know we weren't going to get all of the factions straight off the bat anyway, not all fleshed out to the point that we thought they would be. However, it was more towards the end that they started to kind of hint about the fact that they never actually want to open up into the rest of fantasy lore. They want to stick to that time period of the Old World that we're seeing with those 8 factions, I think it is, isn't it, that we've already got here. Which means that in the next 4 to 5 years, we're not going to probably be getting any of those Legends factions updated at the very least. Because if they choose to update them, it'll probably be 4 or 5 years' time until they start to think about doing that, from what they've said. But I'll be honest, I've said this, I've had conversations with people on X or Twitter about it. In the past, we've seen them do this. You guys know on this channel, I've covered Warcry Kill Team. Warcry was the same when they released that. They're like, oh, we're sticking with this whole Chaos only and the Chaos Wastes and Chaos Warbands and that kind of theme. And we're not going to be touching on any of the other factions. It took them about a few months for them to then give in and say, no, we've actually got these compendiums coming, and we're going to further update them, and we're going to think about doing warbands, specific warbands for the other factions. But when they first actually came up with the idea of Warcry and they released the first videos and the first release wave of all these Chaos Warbands, they said, no, this is what we're sticking to. We don't really want to touch these other factions, but we've given you this little book that you can buy, these books that, the first time it was just one compendium that you can buy for all of your other factions. And in fact, actually, was it even just free PDFs online when it first came out, Warcry? And then I think like a year down the line, they announced all of the Grand Alliance books for each faction and properly more kind of fleshed them out, because they realised that everybody was complaining they wanted their own faction. Completely made sense. The only defence I'm going to give Games Workshop here is that, of course, with Fantasy and Old World, all of your old Fantasy models for the Legacy factions have been updated to the bigger bases for Age of Sigmar, and the new Seraphon models that I've just acquired, they're way bigger and don't really fit to base size for the old Fantasy Lizardmen. So what happened with me, essentially, I still thought, I'll wait for the Legends rules to come out, and maybe I will be able to somewhat convert my Lizardmen to be able to work for Sigmar and for Fantasy. I've completely given up on that. It's just far too difficult and time consuming to be able to try and align them with both, considering how far off the base sizes are, the model sizes. It just does not work. I'd be better off just going out on eBay and finding all the old models for Lizardmen and just putting them on separate bases, which I just find a big waste of my funds, basically. I'd rather just go into a new faction and keep my Seraphon for Sigmar, which is why I have given in, of course. And God, this box is massive. There you go. Tomb Kings, I did pick them up. I made the decision, gave up on Legends, figured if they aren't definitely going to cover that for a long period of time, I'd rather just go in and all in on Old World so that I can actually be involved in it. And I've picked up the books for them as well, and the rules are so much more fleshed out than the Legacy factions. And obviously that's what Games Workshop wanted at the end of the day. They wanted you to buy the stuff that they've made for their Old World. I do feel like they'll give in sooner than people think for the Legacy factions, though. I think people will complain and they'll want them. But I figured, since I was in the situation there where the new models, like say for Seraphon, don't really fit with Lizardmen, old Lizardmen for Old World, I figured why not just actually start up a new faction purely for Old World, and go from there, really. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Old World, and I'm interested to see where it goes. I can see why people are annoyed about the whole Legacy faction thing, but the rules that are there for the Legacy factions, if you do already own the old armies, on the old base sizes, you can just put them on movement trays, you know, the new movement trays to boost the size, or just if you want to swap the base size. But that's fine. But if you actually want to buy a whole new army for Legacy factions, it's not quite so viable for a lot of them. So yeah, just my thoughts there on that, guys. Otherwise, just to close out this vid, really, let's just touch a bit on the podcast. End of this month is the plan for the first episode. Super excited. As I said, Ben, last video I did, Ben from 90% Geek is one of my Core 3 co-hosts. The third is going to be Simon from Hobby Waffle. If you guys haven't seen any of Si's videos before, I'll leave, as I did with Ben last time, a link to his channel in the comment section and in the description below the video, so you can go and check him out. Very similar to Ben in the way that they kind of both topical with Warhammer, what's going on in the week. Obviously everybody's doing a bit of Old World content at the moment because that's the big thing, isn't it? So do check out Si, fantastic videos. I'm really pleased with the three hosts, us three musketeers, as it were, are going to be the core for the podcast. We've already had a session actually having a chat between us, and it's gone down really well, and we've got lots of exciting plans for you guys for the podcast, so get excited, I suppose I would say. And like I say, end of this month, hopefully we will be booting up the first episode with the three of us. And then sort of March onwards, hopefully we might be able to get some different guests on as well, which should make it quite interesting. But let me know in the comments, guys, as well, if there's anything you'd like to see on the podcast topics wise, because I want to start gathering maybe any. What we're going to do is, one of the sections I want on the podcast is to take viewers or people's discussions and topics that they want us to talk about from social media, or comments on the podcast that we're doing, or these videos now this month leading up to the first podcast. Let me know if there's anything you'd like us to discuss on there, and we'll take a 5-10 minute section, you know, taking your question or topic of discussion. That'd be really, really cool. So that's it, guys, really. Like I say, I'll leave the links down below for these different things. My Twitter and X again as well, like I say, trying to gain some followers on there to get chatting to people. I'm really mingling in and out of on that at the moment, and really enjoying that. So please do give us a follow over there. And if you don't have an account on there either, come and join the community. It's actually a fantastic community over there. Tons of lovely people, happy to talk Warhammer with you. So yeah, do join us. But otherwise, guys, until the next video, I'll have another one or two come out probably before the first podcast. So yeah, have a lovely week, guys, and as always, happy wargaming.